Welcome back, and thank you for joining me for episode 2, Shadows of a Killer, Earle Nelson's Early Life. Let's begin. By the time he was a teenager, Earle Nelson was already a man slipping into darkness. Attempts to assault 1 or 2 young girls in San Francisco marked the earliest signs of a mind spiraling out of control. He wandered the city's streets and brothels, drifting from place to place, hiding in plain sight, until his behavior finally caught the attention of the authorities. Doctors at Napa State Hospital would later describe a young man plagued by hallucinations, paranoia, and obsessive religious visions, and yet he could appear calm, polite, and almost ordinary. But beneath that surface lurked a mind capable of violence the world would soon come to know as the Dark Strangler. This is the story of how a troubled teenager became one of North America's most feared killers. To understand how Earle Nelson became one of the most feared criminals of the early 20th century, we have to go back to the beginning. Earle Leonard Nelson was born in San Francisco on May 12, 1897. His early life was shaped by tragedy. Both of his parents died of syphilis when he was still a young boy, leaving him to be raised by his grandmother. She was known for her strict religious beliefs, and Nelson grew up in a household where scripture and moral discipline dominated daily life. Those who knew him later recalled that he often seemed isolated and withdrawn. But one moment in his childhood may have changed the course of his life. Around the age of 10, Nelson was involved in a serious accident when he was struck by a streetcar while riding his bike. The impact left him unconscious for several days. After recovering, relatives began noticing dramatic changes in his behavior. He complained of headaches and began acting unpredictably. At times, he seemed quiet and distant. At other times, he showed bursts of strange, erratic behavior. Today, historians believe this head injury may have contributed to the psychological instability that followed. By the time he reached adolescence, Nelson's behavior had already begun to alarm those around him. Friends later recalled that he seemed increasingly isolated and prone to unusual obsessions. But another pattern was beginning to emerge as well. According to later accounts, Nelson was already frequenting the brothels of San Francisco's Barbary Coast district while he was still in his mid-teens. At the time, the area was known for gambling halls, saloons, and prostitution houses that attracted sailors, laborers, and young men looking for excitement. For Nelson, however, these visits appear to have taken on a darker significance. Historians studying his life have noted that many of his later victims were women who lived alone or operated small boarding houses, women who might have reminded him of types of establishments he encountered in the early years. Psychologists who have examined the case point to several factors that may have shaped Nelson's developing mind: the loss of both parents at a young age, a strict and emotionally intense religious upbringing, and the severe head injury he suffered as a child. Today, many researchers believe that traumatic brain injury combined with psychological instability may have played a role in the violent impulses that later emerged. But in the early 1900s, mental health science was still developing. Many of the warning signs that would seem obvious today were poorly understood at the time, and for several years Nelson drifted through San Francisco with little supervision. That period of freedom would eventually lead him toward his first arrests, and ultimately toward the institution we explored in the last episode. By the time Nelson reached his late teenage years, he had already begun encountering problems with the law. In 1915, he was arrested after breaking into a remote cabin in California. Believing the structure to be abandoned, Nelson had entered the building and taken supplies. At 18, Nelson was sentenced to 2 years in San Quentin prison. After his release, the pattern continued. Nelson was arrested again for theft and other minor offenses. There were also reports that he had attempted to escape custody more than once. Around this same time, he attempted to enlist in the military. Records suggest he joined under false identities and was quickly discharged after his behavior raised concerns among officers. Authorities increasingly believed Nelson's problems were not simply criminal, they were psychological. In 1918, Nelson was formally committed to Napa State Hospital. At the time, Napa was one of the largest psychiatric hospitals in California, housing thousands of patients suffering from severe mental illness. Doctors evaluating Nelson recorded several troubling symptoms. He described hearing music when none was present. At other times, he believed people were trying to poison him or harm him. Hospital notes also mention periods of intense religious obsession and paranoia. In the terminology of the day, the medical staff tentatively diagnosed his condition as a constitutional psychopathic state. There were no known cures for this type of behavior, and he was put in with the other patients and left to vegetate. Despite his symptoms, staff initially believed Nelson did not pose an immediate physical threat to others. During his confinement at Napa, Nelson repeatedly tried to flee the hospital. On several occasions, he succeeded. Each time he disappeared into the surrounding countryside before authorities eventually located him and returned him to the institution. Because of these repeated escapes, staff members reportedly gave him a nickname, Houdini. Medical records from the hospital describe a patient whose condition shifted dramatically from day to day. Sometimes Nelson appeared calm, cooperative, and even polite. Other times he became restless and agitated, pacing the wards and speaking about religious visions or conspiracies. Doctors struggled to categorize his condition. After leaving Napa for a period of time, Nelson attempted to build a more stable life. While working as a janitor at a hospital in San Francisco, he met a woman named Mary Martin. Despite a large difference in age between them, the two married in 1919. The relationship quickly became strained. According to later accounts, Nelson's behavior remained unpredictable and deeply unsettling to those around him. Their relationship was short-lived, with Nelson's sexual perversions and obsessive jealousy driving his wife to the point of a nervous breakdown after 6 months. He called upon her in the hospital, and there he attempted to molest her in bed, before the staff responded to her screams and drove him off. Nelson once again began drifting through California, taking temporary work and frequently changing locations. In May of 1918, Earle got into the home of Charles Summers in San Francisco, on the pretext that he was a plumber. Going into the basement, he found the 12-year-old daughter of the family playing with dolls. Earle attempted to violate the girl sexually, but her screams brought her brother to her aid, and Earle fled the house after a short struggle. Later that day, Earle was arrested, but because of his erratic behavior, he was transported to Napa State Hospital for the insane. Psychiatrists evaluating him warned that his mental state required institutional care. As a result, he was again committed to Napa State Hospital. During this second stay, doctors continued to observe the same disturbing patterns: religious mania, paranoia, sudden agitation, and repeated escape attempts. For several years, Nelson remained under supervision at the hospital. Then, in 1925, doctors made a decision that would later be heavily scrutinized. They released him. Hospital notes stated that his condition had improved enough for him to return to society. Within months, the crimes that would make him infamous began. When doctors released Earle Nelson in 1925, they believed they were sending a troubled patient back into the world. Instead, they had unknowingly released a man who would soon become one of the most feared killers in North America. Within 2 years, communities from California to Canada would be searching for the same face, and the quiet patient once nicknamed Houdini would earn a far darker title. He would become infamous for being the first known American serial sex killer of the 20th century. Join me next week for Episode 3, The Dark Strangler's Reign, Nelson's Crimes Across North America, where we continue to explore the life and prolific crimes of Earle Nelson. I am so glad you stuck with me to the end of the video and can't wait for next time. Bye!